what are some of the opportunities that you saw within the Ghanaian ecosystem that made you think that this is what I want to provide the support?
So,
Why will your business work in Africa and not in the West?
we don't need
African small businesses, from what you've seen based on data, become global entity. How can they do that?
It's not going to be an overnight story.
What's your long-term plan for the support you're providing for African small businesses?
The goal is that with Oze,
You've spent time in Africa, building entrepreneurs and also doing a lot of humanitarian work. But the truth is, you have no cultural or traditional ties to Africa. So how did you get to understand what is good for young entrepreneurs on the continent?
it's a really good question. And I think it's that I approached from day one my work with a beginner's mindset. So being an outsider, there was no hiding that I don't know things. Like, I had to learn from our customers, learn from my partners how to take some things that are universal, right? Like accounting KPIs are universal, they're not cultural.
Yeah.
But how to contextualize that in a way that respects the norms of doing business in a place like Ghana or a place like Nigeria. And I go back to the Peace Corps, right? Peace Corps sent me to the Republic of Guinea, never been to Africa before, hadn't heard of Guinea, and got on a plane and moved there for 27 months. And I think one of the most important things that Peace Corps taught me was that we needed to enter into our communities with an asset-based mindset, right?
Okay.
Growing up in the US in the 90s, the perception of Africa was, poverty and bad governance and no roads and this and this and this. And then, coming of age in the early thousands, the perception of Muslim people were that they were terrorists. And here I was in a 98% Muslim country, living in a village that didn't, I call it a town. Outsiders would be like, no, that's a village. But living in a community that had no electricity. Like, I lived in a hut, things that people come have associated with Africa. But Peace Corps from day one, it's an asset-based mindset. So your first visit during training to the community that you're going to live in, you map out the assets. And the assets are not just physical things. They're not just where's the water pump, where's the school, where's the health center, but who are the people in the community who are assets to making the positive change that you want to work together and bring. And I've kept that asset-based mindset with me as I've gone across my career and worked in different countries, solving different problems from different angles. And I think that's why I've been able to build something that resonates with an African consumer base, even though me, myself, I'm American.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, when you were in Guinea, you experienced a moment where you had to collect rainwater and then filter that and then drink that for a year.
Yeah. Which is nonsense. No one should have to live that way. That was 2013. But we had a pump. So we went to the pump for drinking water. And we had a well for washing clothes and washing the house and anything other than drinking. And as dry season got deeper and deeper and deeper, your well would dry up. So then you'd have to go to another well, eventually to the river. But during the first rainy season that I was living in Kindia, Guinea, some people took advantage of a very loud storm one night to tie chains to our water pump, tie it to their motorcycle, and yank it out of the ground. And so the whole community lost their water pump. So I wasn't the only one who no longer had access to pump water. None of us had access to pump water, but I was the only one with a filter. So I was lucky. Like, Peace Corps supplies you with a water filter so you don't die. So even, within that struggle that all of us as a community were facing, I still, by nature of just being lucky to be an American, had a leg up. I was able to filter that water. I didn't have to boil it. I didn't have to sift it, whatever.
But after you went through all of that, and then you still decided, okay, I'm going to create a business here, and I'm going to try and support SMEs. I mean, you could have easily said, I'm going back.
I mean, I did go back.
And I'm not coming back again.
So when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I started a business accelerator. I didn't know at the time what a business accelerator was. So we called it Dare to Innovate, the first conference for social entrepreneurship, and took a very co-creative approach. So in university, I have a weird background. I studied finance and theater and performance studies.
Okay.
And the theater and performance studies I did was around using theater as a tool for social change. So co-creating performance art with a community that wants to see change and then putting that on and then seeing how it sparks dialogue. And it's this method called devised theater where you're just kind of like pulling things together and kind of weaving it into art. And so I took that kind of same framework and said, how can we weave together a curriculum, a movement, an event that got people from a problem they wanted to solve in their community through to a market-based solution. And so we ended up creating this like truly remarkable accelerator program, but not knowing that it was an accelerator. And it was 10 days of intensive, like you went through this curriculum, like people were up all night. We were at this like rural organic farm. Like people were working and like struggling with problems and coming up with ideas and bonding. Like that group, it was now, oh my gosh, like 13 years ago.
Okay.
And they're still in touch. We're still in touch. So it was like we all learned and grew together. And then everyone went back to where they came from. The entrepreneurs were from across all of Guinea. They did prototypes for a month. And then they came back and they pitched for funding. The night of the pitch, so I think we were back for like 3 days or something. One night, we walked around, like me and the other volunteers, and like all of the Guineans were gone. We're like, where is everybody? What's going on? There was never a night where people weren't like out trying to get help on their business plan, et cetera. And it turns out that they had self-organized, gone back into the classroom in the middle of the night and said, this organization needs to exist. Like, this is the most special thing we've gone through. This can truly make change in Guinea. Peace Corps comes and goes. Americans come and go. And we need to make sure that this continues. And so when the people you're working with want to make sure it continues, you want to do everything in your power to make sure it continues. And so in that moment, I went from somebody who thought that I was going to do 2 years of Peace Corps, get emerging markets experience, go back to America, be a consultant, call it a day. I was like now in it to win it and didn't want to stop working on solving the problems that mean that being born in one country, you have unequal access to opportunity, that they needed a 22-year-old to take $7,000 and put this event together in order to have access to the first seed funding in their country for, startups and tech startups. And so it changed me. And it's why, like, when things get hard and even when people see, oh, she's an outsider, like she could leave at any moment, like, why is she even here? It's like, no, because that moment, like, it changed all of us, me included.
Is it the impact? Is it the impact that brought you back that make you stay on? Because you feel like you're providing a lot more for people.
So
with very little, you may have very little, but then it goes a long way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes it sound more charitable than it is.
Right, okay.
I find, like, I'm a person who gets a lot out of work. Like, work is a big part of me. I like to work. And the type of work I like doing is systems change. And it's almost like, I like jigsaw puzzles. Like, I'm a big nerd. Like, trying to fit everything and work together and get rid of constraints and solve problems. And I found in that work that I found it really intellectually stimulating. So as much it is emotional. You don't do entrepreneurship if you're not emotionally attached to solving the problem. But also it was like, I have to get up every day and work, right? And I could be doing anything, really. And this is the work that I find really engaging and motivating, and it keeps me going.
I love it. And then you've gone from Guinea to the US and then back to Ghana, and this your amazing project. Jose. I spoke to a few entrepreneurs and they said very good things about the platform. I'd love to try it too. I'd love to find out, the things the good things they're saying about it, what transformation it can bring to our business as well. But what are some of the opportunities that you saw within the Ghanaian ecosystem that made you think that this is what I want to go for? This is what I want to provide the support in.
So, I guess Peace Corps was so transformational for me because it kind of all goes back to that. So when we were about to do our second Dare to Innovate accelerator program, that's when Ebola broke out. So the entrepreneurs were right. Peace Corps comes and goes. Americans come and go because Peace Corps pulled out. We lost all of our funding.
Okay.
Our Guinean partners could have run the program if they had funding, but our funding was through Peace Corps and we lost all of it. Luckily, Dare to Innovate survives. It's now the largest accelerator in Francophone Africa. We made it through. But as a result of that kind of like massive rupture, all of the volunteers were back in America and we rented an Airbnb and we put ourselves through our own accelerator program. Okay. So we condensed it. It was like the most intense 4 days. We took our week long of programming and just, we knew it so deeply. So we didn't have to train. We just kind of did it. We went through the program. And the outcome of that was not Jose, but it was the kernel of the seed that grew into Jose. So the design challenge we were trying to solve through that accelerator was how might we support entrepreneurs remotely? Because Ebola made social distancing cool before COVID. And at scale, because our first accelerator was 21 people, and we're not going to solve any problems 21 people at a time. So a technology platform came out of that. It was more focused to the development sector, but my day job at the time was innovation strategy work for Fortune 50 companies. So I was learning a lot about human-centered design, a lot about business model design, a lot about how to get people to adopt new technologies. And so when I was taking that kind of influence from the work I was doing and layering it onto the output of that accelerator, it slowly morphed into Jose. When I was finishing up consulting, I went to graduate school and I took 4 months off. I quit 4 months early, let's say, and moved back to my hut in Guinea.
Okay.
And was also going back and forth to Benin because that's where Dare to Innovate moved during the Ebola crisis. And what I learned during that time, it wasn't Jose at the time, it was the platform before Jose, but what we learned during that period of prototyping was that there was not enough mobile internet for people to access the solution. So I got into grad school, the platform started morphing, it got closer to what is Jose today. And I was like, okay, unfortunately, Guinea is not the place for this. And so I say it's like the most MBA activity I did in my MBA. Like I literally listed countries down the side, like parameters across the top, like market size, internet penetration, and Ghana rose towards the top of the list. I came to Ghana.
Why Ghana? Why not Nigeria? What was
so
your
there's
data
a couple
telling
of
you?
like good reasons and a couple of bad reasons. Good being like their parameters from which you should have made a decision. When you think back to that was before Jose existed as Jose is, so this was probably like 2017.
Okay.
Nigeria hadn't yet popped off as like the heart of fintech for Africa.
Okay.
So it wasn't like we were trying to do the exercise proving why we should go to Nigeria. I was also a student of MIT at the time.
Okay.
They had tons of resources. I was in this program called the Legantum Center for Entrepreneurship in Emerging Markets.
Okay.
And they would pay for me to go wherever and do research while I was a student, except not Nigeria because of where it was on the State Department risk list.
Right.
So the Ghana was a place that I could go that had great smartphone penetration. Like still, Ghana has great smartphone penetration.
Yeah.
And the MIT network here is strong. So before I even came to do my research, I had like a full 10 days of programming, like because I talked to people on the phone and they were like, oh, you need to meet this entrepreneur or organize an event for this. You got to go here, you got to go there. And And the same problems that I was seeing in Guinea around the constraints that keep micro businesses micro were also, I discovered when I came here, also existing in Ghana. And so it made sense. We knew from day one we wanted to build a Pan-African company. So we were looking for our first country of operations, not our only country of operations. And I think Ghana is really strong for that as well.
Based on the data that you've collected.
Based on the data, yeah.
Yeah, the data you've collected over the years, both from Oze and prior to starting that company. What do you think are the problems with a lot of the startups in Ghana?
So when we say startup, we have a very specific picture of something like Oze, right?
Yep.
A tech-enabled business that has, small marginal costs so we can expand to infinity. We don't really work with startups.
Okay.
We work with small businesses.
Okay.
Small businesses don't have the luxury to say, let me be unprofitable for 7 years. Let me go raise VC. We work with small businesses that, like, if they spend more than they make a couple months in a row, like, that's gone. That.
Yeah.
And I think the constraints are universal. It's people are making a lot of decisions based on their gut. And they saw their parents, people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, every day they're making decisions based on their gut. I say that gut's been trained. The gut of a 30-year-old who's just, new to business has not been trained. So when they see their parents or grandparents making business decisions just kind of like anyhow, they're actually calculating and consuming and bringing together a lot of data and making an informed decision. But for someone who's newer to business, you gotta use data. You can't use your gut. Your intuition gets trained over time. Eventually, like, intuition is always a part of it. But if you don't have data, you can't make good decisions. And I can be surprised, but I've yet to meet an entrepreneur who said, I don't really care about the business I do. I just really wanted to do accounting. So I started a business, right? So It's the thing at the end of the day you don't want to do. So that's a huge problem. It means that people make a lot of bad decisions and aren't backed up by the data. And in a place like Ghana, you don't have the luxury of making bad decisions because there's not a lot of capital around. So
for any business person, right, from launch to sustainability, how should they navigate that? Because sometimes when you get on that journey, it can be very rough. And you need a lot of skills to support you yourself and your team, and the direction you want to take the business.
And that also assumes that sustainability is a finish line you cross, not a thing that's always moving, right? Like, you can hit product market fit, you can hit profitability, you can hit sustainability, and then something changes.
Right.
And you gotta scramble and do it all over again. So I'm sure there's a level that some businesses get to, that especially like privately owned businesses, not publicly traded ones, where you're like, okay, now it's making cash for me and I don't have to worry. But for most business owners, like, the pursuit of business growth and success and profitability and stability and all of this is a lifelong pursuit until you retire.
Yes.
I think it looks different for every business. I think the most important things is, like, one, record keeping. People don't like to track how much they're spending when they're not really earning yet because it doesn't feel good. But then you never really know when your business broke even. You never really know what worked. You don't know your return on investment to know where you should put more money. And you're not prepared to get capital if you need it. Oze started getting into lending because we could see that the businesses that had adopted Oze, we were such a new company at the time, but we could see that the businesses that had adopted Oze, like 97%, were growing profitable or both. Then COVID came in, and almost 2/3 of those businesses had their revenue drop to zero.
Right.
If they hadn't been keeping records, how would they have gotten capital to survive that cash flow rupture?
So do you think that's what the problem is with a lot of African businesses, especially younger ones? Data. They don't understand that, in fact, they don't even know where they broke even to even start thinking of, am I profitable?
I'm surprised because I'm like, okay, well, if you have a shop you should know what product does well. Like you should have a sense. Yeah. People say that's one of the number one things they learned from Ose. Now I know which products are fast moving. I'm like, okay, I thought you would know that. I've never run a shop, so I can't say from experience.
Because you restock regularly.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but maybe your cousin isn't there working for you for a few days a week. You don't know if maybe some products are walking away. You don't know if one person one time went and bought everything and they're not going to be a repeat customer. So data, yeah. But I wouldn't say it's like a uniquely African thing. I think in a place like I'll speak for the US because that's where I have context. You don't have a choice but to keep records. So we talk about it, Ose, extrinsic motivators to keep records and intrinsic motivators to keep records. You have a lot of extrinsic factors in the US or the UK. Like you have to do accounting. The IRS will come. Like you have to pay your taxes. You have to file things.
Yes.
Here, you're more reliant on intrinsic motivation. I want to know how my business is doing. And when there's only that intrinsic motivation, you fall sick, you have a bad week, you travel. It becomes a lot easier to say, you know what, I'm just not going to do it this week. I'm not going to do it this month. And then it becomes hard to restart again because your records are already spoiled, right? Like if you're doing inventory management and you take off for 2 weeks, not tracking the products coming in and out of your business, your inventory data is spoiled.
Yes.
You got to retake inventory.
Start again, and there's a bigger job.
And then it's like, do I really want to do this today? And today becomes tomorrow, and tomorrow becomes the next week. So it's not, it's something, like I don't want to be sitting here being like, oh, government should make people keep records.
Business owners should do that.
They should do that. But we all need a little...
Business, you need data to keep it moving. You need data. Especially now.
But sometimes you need like a little bit of a carrot and a stick to get that going.
Right.
Because again, like no one started a business to keep records. And it's not fun. Like I think that one of the reasons that Ose's become habit forming for our business users is because I'm not someone who likes to keep records. Like the bottom of my car is receipts, scraps of paper here, scraps of paper there. Like I build Ose for business owners like me for who record keeping really feels like a chore. And what are the different kind of nudges I can build into the app so that I don't forget to do it. I feel motivated to do it. I'm not like a data, like, well, no, I love data analytics. But I'm not a super organized person who gets joy like from keeping everything in its place. And I think I'm like most people.
Yeah. From your understanding, why do businesses fail?
There are so many reasons, but when you boil them all down, you need to pay for things and there's no cash to do it.
Okay.
Right? That at the end of the day, there's a lot of causes for that, whether it's payment term issues, like you're selling, but you're not collecting fast enough, whether you bought the wrong product and now you don't have money to restock, whether it was some issue with the government, whether it's you got in a motorcycle accident and you can't work for 3 months. But at the end of the day, someone's coming to your door for money, employee, vendor, whatever, and you don't have money to pay them.
Well, African businesses are saying that what we need is funding to support our businesses.
Yeah.
Right. And if we had the right funding, we have the ability to turn the businesses around. I've spoken to several entrepreneurs who have said that the reason why my business is failing is because I need more money. Right? They keep saying that, especially the startups. We need more money. We need more money. Because they keep burning cash, right?
Yeah. So I'll use the analogy that made sense. Make it make sense to me. A business is a bucket, okay, and water is capital into your business. If your bucket is full of holes, it does not matter how much water you're pouring in the top. It's just going to go out.
Yeah.
So when businesses come to me and say, oh, I need money. If I had money, I'm like, have you looked at your bucket? Where are the holes? What can we patch up? Once those holes are patched, you need money to grow. But no matter how much money or how much water you pour into a sieve, you're not going to retain any water in the bucket leakage at the end of the day.
It's leakage, right? Yeah. I never looked at it like that, but that's quite powerful. Yeah, so I just feel like a lot of these startups, they burn cash a lot.
And we're guilty of that too.
Okay.
There's pressure, right? Like that's the other thing of it. Like if you want to pursue profitability, the best money is not the bank's money. It's not the investor's money. It's your customer's money. Like when you can fuel your business off of your customer money, your revenue, your cash flow, then you're in a place where you are your own boss and you can make your own decisions. If most of your capital is coming from the bank and from investors, even if you feel like, oh, I'm the CEO, I'm my own boss, you're not.
No.
You have a lot of other bosses sitting other places.
Absolutely.
And so I think like us being guilty, like any other startup, right? We are still operating on other people's money, our customers, but also investors.
Okay.
And we're really lucky. We have some really good investors who are able to fuel our growth. And that lets us treat every dollar preciously, but also gives us like a little bit of breathing room to make some mistakes.
Right.
And I think that's how you need to think about capital. You don't know when you're a startup if putting $1 here is going to bring $2 out of it. You can't be afraid to put that dollar because you don't know the outcome, but you also can't just be putting dollars everywhere and hoping for the best. And I think when you get a lot of competitors in a market, everyone starts putting dollars everywhere, hoping that that's going to be the secret. But you still need to carefully consider each and every dollar you're spending. And again, if you're not measuring it, I don't know if that $1 became 3, became 2, became 0.
That's
so you
true.
really we have an experiments mindset at Oze. So anyone in the company can run an experiment. There's like a form they can fill out, 1-pager. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What are you going to learn? What's the experiment design? How much is it going to cost? What are you measuring? And then at the end of the experiment, they have to share the results. And some experiments have been, I'm not going to say a waste of money, but we've spent and we've not figured something out yet. But some experiments become actually the source of how we operate at Oze.
But I mean, why will your business work in Africa and not in the West? Why can't you, you see what I mean? Why is it such a good idea for the African market?
And not for the US
and
market.
Not for the US or
it's
the
not
UK.
That it's not a good idea for a different market. It's that we've designed this business with and for small businesses in Africa.
Right.
So a very clear design. So when Oze came into Ghana, even Momo wasn't really wide adopted.
Okay.
And to this day, cards are not really adopted.
Yes.
E-commerce, we're getting there. But I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but most African adults have never bought something online. Right? So we got a ways to go. If that's the reality that you're building for, we need to design systems that make it easy to record cash sales, that make it easy to record offline sales. If I look at a small business in the US, my whole family's entrepreneurs, but if I use my brother sells products. I don't think physical cash has ever come into his business or an offline sale has ever come into his business. So for him, record keeping is not how do we create habits to record this down. It's how do we integrate with Shopify? How do we integrate with this? How do we integrate with that? So they're just two different businesses.
Right. It's already built in the system. The system is ready for you to have an e-com platform in the West, taking payments either via PayPal or you name it.
Yeah.
So there is a certain level of data collection there. Anyway, even if you don't
it's
have
passive.
right,
It's passive data collection.
Because you can just check from your merchant account which product you're selling the most.
Yeah.
You don't really need to have an in-house inventory management to even do that.
And it's part of why we didn't start in Kenya.
Yeah.
Right? M-Pesa has such big market share there that you can kind of look at your M-Pesa account and know how your business is doing. You still need to keep records, but the pain is not as large because here you're looking, especially when you started, you were maybe looking at your Momo for some things. That was before interoperability. So maybe you were looking at your Airtel Tigo Cash for some other things. You were looking in your cash box. You were looking in 2 different bank accounts. You needed a centralized platform. Here it's about how do you create good systems for active data collection. In the US, it's how do you create good systems for passive data collection.
Right. Can African small businesses, from what you've seen, based on data, become global entities?
Absolutely.
How can they do that?
It's not going to be an overnight story. We have an Oze customer who was in the right place at the right time. and was driven and motivated, one of the hardest workers I know, and was an Oze customer. So she was keeping records. And she was manufacturing cleaning detergents, house soaps, these kinds of things. So when COVID broke out, she switched to hand sanitizer. She was exporting to China. She made more money in, that year than we made.
Okay.
So it was totally possible. One of the startups I respect most on this planet is Move, a Nigerian business that is now the company funding Teslas for Uber drivers in the UK. So it's not only possible, it has been done, but I'm not going to lie and say the cards aren't stacked against you, that the capital here is more expensive than capital elsewhere. Customs and ports are more challenging. Supply chains are more fragmented. Like, it's definitely harder here, but it's not impossible.
If you're enjoying the conversation, please stay with us. But if you're not enjoying it, there's a next video down. Please watch that. But I'm sure you are. And leave a comment, like it, share it. Let other people get to know about it. And if you're listening to the audio, there's a lot of things that has happened in the studio that you're never going to get to see. But anyway, I always appreciate a subscribe, a like, or a follow. We're still in a conversation with Meghan. And hopefully the next few points that I've got is going to get your attention. Let's go from idea to launch.
The most fun stage.
The most fun stage?
The most fun.
Okay, all right. I would have thought that's probably the most difficult part.
No, that's when everything is possible.
That's when a lot of entrepreneurs think, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I always tell people, especially in the boom times when capital was out there. I mean, if you're a small business, no, you have to be generating cash flow to get debt. But if you're raising equity, I'm like, at that moment, everything you're promising can come true. The second the rubber hits the road, then you get a flat tire and you're like, this was harder than I thought. That idea to launch phase, I think it's why so many people become early stage entrepreneurs and leave when the companies get big. You're just in a room vibing with your customers, vibing with your team, dreaming up what the future could look like, sketching out how it is possible. I mean, of course, nothing feels better than your first CD of revenue. I can still remember because we were a free business for over a year. Oze had no paid packages. But when that first CD of revenue hit, I still know where I was.
I think you said 30 CDs or $6, equivalent to $6.
Our old subscriptions were 10 CDs a month. That was our starting price. It was set when it was 5 CDs to the dollar.
Huh. Because I remember you saying that it was about $6 per month or something.
So we have packages that are about that.
Right.
Now our entry level package is $3.99 equivalent. It's no longer $2, but there's a ton more features than there were back then.
Right.
And kind of what gave us the confidence to start charging is we knew we had to charge, and it was always in the game plan. But you're like, okay, is it good enough for someone to pay yet? Is it good enough? Is it good enough? One of our customers is like, I love Oze. It has changed my business. I am making so much more money than I used to make. I don't want you guys to shut down. Can I please pay you?
Huh.
And we're like, but it's a free product. But that kind of gave us the confidence of okay, it's time to now get serious about what are the paid features.
But of course, it wasn't your plan, as you said, to keep it free forever.
It was never the plan to be free forever.
Facebook model. Let's get a lot of people data, and then let's open the ads.
Yeah, and I mean, we never even had that kind of model, but it was we're competing with a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
If we're less good than a notebook, who's going to pay for it? And the only way that we can get better than a notebook is to learn with these customers. So we needed a good group of users, and our users, I mean, we still get it together with our customers a lot, but in those early days, once a month on Saturdays, we would have a group of users come in, we'd have workshops, we'd do co-creation, we'd test new ideas with them. And it was almost like they were delivering more value to us than we were to them. So I wasn't going to charge on top of that.
What's your long-term plan for the support you're providing for African small businesses? Your long-term plan? Like, what's the goal
Yeah.
of this business?
The goal is that with Oze, starting a small business is a predictable and reliable path to prosperity. So that kind of mission informs the roadmap. Do we put in features? What features do we put in? Well, does it make small business ownership a predictable and reliable path to prosperity or not? So that kind of guides things for us. Of course, small businesses are always going to fail, but if you use Oze, we want your chance of success to be higher than your chance of failure.
Is it happening at the moment? Are you seeing more businesses who are becoming a lot more successful by using your platform, or you're seeing people just get through the bottom?
So it's definitely a kind of eat your vegetables, go to the gym type platform, right? Like
Okay.
you should be using it, but until you've actually built that habit, it's really easy to stop, right? So we have a lot of people come on the platform, they send their first receipt, and then never come back. But those that get over that hurdle and actually adopt the platform, we see great things for their business. I mean, I'm seeing when the loans are going out, so I'm seeing people actually increase their capacity to borrow, grow their business to the point where, like, it is really remarkable how you can see, okay, this was a small business run out of a dorm room. Now they're exporting around the world. Like, we have tons of stories like that.
Okay.
So Oze does help you to succeed. And now it's just, how do we let each and every business owner with a smartphone know Oze exists and give them that motivation to get over that first hump? Because 2 days of records do nothing for your business. 1 week, maybe you're starting to see some cool things. 1 month, you're like, okay, now I knew what I earned this month. But really, your records don't become valuable to you until a quarter in, 6 months in. And you just got to keep that motivation, keep putting in the work to the point where you have enough data to now see trends, to now actually use it to make good decisions, and to actually see that you're making more money.
I guess, once you have the data, the next job is to analyze the data, look at it, and then make quality decisions, based on that data. And are people doing that?
I mean, I'm not in the minds of all of our customers.
Because of your mentorship, you said you have support for a lot of entrepreneurs.
So yes, the ones that do reach out, the ones that use our supports, the ones that come to the trainings, and then I go out and do a lot of research too. And we send daily business tips, and people will quote back I used to write all of the business tips. I don't anymore. But people will quote back a business tip that I wrote at me and say, oh, that changed everything in how I do my business. So yeah, I do see at an individual level, I see businesses thriving, and then aggregate, when I look across all of our data, I see that compared to last year, compared to the year before, Oze is easier to adopt. Oze provides more value, and the companies are doing better than they were. Even in this Ghana, which is not an easy market.
Yeah, quite a difficult market. If I gave you a box full of opportunities, you can be whoever you want to be, just pick and be, what would you choose?
I sometimes want to go to sleep and wake up 2 years when we're successful. Like, I want to be me 2 years in the future, because building a business is hard and we're still in the investment phase. Like, we're still laying down foundations, and it's going to pay off. But sometimes you become really impatient, waiting to the point where you actually get to see the payoff. So I'm happy being me. I don't need to be someone else. But sometimes you do want to live as yourself in the future and see where your hard work has gotten you to.
What are some of the challenges you faced in Ghana since you've been here?
I think the challenges of running a business are the challenges anywhere. Like, you think you built the right feature and it was the wrong feature.
For the people.
Yeah. Like, we had a feature called Oze Pay that we've since discontinued, both for adoption and regulatory reasons. We realized that it was going to put us into a license category we didn't want to be in. But we spent hours and hours and hours researching with our customers the pain points they had around Momo and accepting payments from their customers, how the system should work. We sketched it out. We were like, okay, like, if we put Oze Pay into this, which is basically like, when I record a sale, I could put in the customer's phone number and they would get a prompt and they put in their PIN and you get paid Momo. And they're like, oh, I would love that. That would make life so easy. Right now I have to record an Oze and then go do it separately. Nobody used it.
Wow.
I'm not even talking like, oh, some people, but there was no growth there. Like nobody. Even the people who like we have on camera saying like, I would love that. That would make my life so much easier.
Nope.
And why was it? We didn't do research with the right people. We interviewed our customers. We needed to be interviewing their customers because the end buyer didn't want to change the process. They already knew the merchant's Momo number. They started typing it in. They're like, why do you need my number? I don't want to put in my PIN, this. So we had interviewed the wrong people and built the wrong feature. And you invest in that. And then you're like, okay, we're launching it. Like, we're going to like to the moon. And then you put it and it's crickets. Like that's hard, but that's not a Ghana thing. That's an everywhere thing. That's an entrepreneur thing.
I've got a camera there for you.
Okay.
If you were to tell entrepreneurs one or two things that will allow them to stay on the journey and be resilient and have the determination to go through whatever it is that they face because they believe in their damn dreams, what would it be?
I think that if you believe in your damn dreams, like you have the hardest part solved already. When I talk to people who are like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do this. I want to do that. What I always ask them is, when you wake up in the morning, can you imagine yourself doing anything else? Because if you can imagine yourself doing anything else, do yourself a favor and go do that. Because entrepreneurship is the hardest path that you can choose for yourself. And the entrepreneurs who are going to be successful, the truth of the matter is they also have the skills and capabilities to be successful in like a lot more of a stable life, a lot more of a stable career. The short-term way to make money, it's go get a job. It's don't be an entrepreneur. But if you wake up every morning and all you want to do, despite the pain, despite, seeing your friends buy houses or not have debts, like if you just have to solve that problem, then do it. And the second thing is, okay, once you've made that decision, stay close to your customers. They will guide you as to where your business is going to go. They're not going to tell you, do this, do that, because like you say, back in the day, they wouldn't have invented a car, they would have invented a faster horse. So you just can't take what your customers say and implement it. But if the day you stop listening deeply to your customers is the day that you're going to stray off the path and not build a successful business.
And I hope you've enjoyed your time with me.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. I always learn. It's always, what can I learn from this person? And you just said something about the horses. Back in the day, that's what they would do. They would either invent faster horses or train horses to be faster at doing what they do. But things have changed, right? So we just need to keep thinking and, reinventing ourselves and, stay on the path. Thank you so much. My name is Derek. And if you've enjoyed this conversation once again, watch the next video. Stay connected.